renunciation to develop that heart bodhicitta, to think about what happens to beings in this world. And so that horrible thing, this is funny if you're British, that horrible thing that destroys all the goodness in this world is also behind these four fierce river currents. And everything, every living thing on this planet is pushed into birth, into a state of being which must necessarily go through some sickness, some suffering of body and mind. It doesn't stay good. We change. At some point you will get sick. At some point it will be the last time you get sick. And that's true for every single being. Forget the 7 billion humans. That's true for every single living, crawling thing on this planet. This is two of the four fierce river currents. One of the currents is this birth, endless birth happening here. And endless hurt. Some kind of sickness, physical or mental. It comes to all of us. This is looking at reality. To generate a heart of enlightenment, this thing called bodhicitta, the wish to love another as much as you love yourself, to want their happiness, it's hard to find. As much as you want it for yourself, think these four things. It's happening to all of us. Then you'll get old, and then as you get old, things don't work. Physical and mental things don't work. All the accumulated stuff you've ever done, all the hours of work, all the computer programming, all the customer service, all those things are finished. They can't help you. And then, of course, we're all pushed through to the end. Every single crawling thing here, from elephants to ants to humans, boys and girls, old and young, they go through these things. These are the four fierce river currents. And so Tsongkhapa is saying, if you get real about renunciation, but then don't think it's just happening to you. Think about everybody else. And it says they're your mothers. There's a thing about developing this heart of enlightenment, bodhicitta, this state of mind which cares for others and makes you want to figure out how this thing can turn to enlightenment for the sake of them as well as you. That thing is fueled by this thinking. So let's talk a little bit about bodhicitta. What is it to become? So a being who has bodhicitta is called a bodhisattva. So that's a picture of a bodhisattva. You're a warrior against the suffering of this world and the things that cause this suffering, and with a full heart for loving every other being as best as you can, you are trying to figure out this thing. That's the sword will cut.
It looks like he has a guitar.
A guitar what?
It looks like it has a guitar stuck to his forehead.
That's the light reflections.
Yes. So bodhicitta in Tibetan is Jamsen, which is bodhi mind. And so sometimes when you read Buddhist books that have been badly translated, people think you have to have the mind of a Buddha to get this thing called bodhicitta, but it's not that. Bodhi mind is defined as the wish to get enlightened, the wish to reach freedom for the sake of every other being. You as well, you are one of the every other beings. So it's not this guilt complex that we sometimes have in the West that, I'll make sure everybody else is happy and I'll suffer. That martyrdom is a mistake. It's not the thing, okay? We're not talking about that. Westerners sometimes get confused with that. We are not using these ideas to perpetuate some bull idea that keeps us in suffering. That's not the point. And that's a big warning signal for Western people who have these ideas and are trying to internalize them. People like me who were born in Argentina think that I must feel guilty, otherwise I'm not good. So I have to continue to feel guilty, and for years this was a perfect excuse for me to maintain that guilt. I'm not helping everybody yet. I'm so bad. It's not the point. The point is for you to feel good in making efforts to help others. It should be joyful. Yeah. Okay. So that's there's two ways to develop bodhicitta. This wish to reach enlightenment for the sake of everyone else as well as you. One way is called tonglen, which is swapping yourself for another. And this is, I'll give you a very quick summary of what this is. You think of somebody, you take some quiet time, you think of somebody that you love and you wish wasn't hurting. Yeah? It can be you in the future. Yeah, that's like the perfect person. Oh, tonight I'm going to have to tell my boyfriend that I spent all the money and so they're going to get angry at me and that's going to be suffering. So I didn't spend money. Yeah. So you can grab that as your object of swapping yourself for another and help them get over it, or it could be a parent or a friend. At the moment, for those of you who know Noah, who's the Nepali guy that helped us in 108 lives, him and his stepson Sonu, and his family moved to America 2.5 weeks ago with a 5-year-old daughter, Melansima, 4-year-old. And so they're in Pittsburgh. Sorry for the diversion for some of you. And they've been here just 2 weeks. And on Thursday, Melansima, the 4-year-old girl, passes out on the toilet, just drops. And he has to give, he's 70 something, he has to give her mouth to mouth. And he has to resuscitate it. And they're freaking out. They're brand new, so the wife is Nepali, Sonu's Nepali, Melansima's Nepali. He's the only American. Yeah? They've got no insurance. They've just arrived. They haven't organized anything. They've just moved there. The girl's in intensive care. She's got some problem in her heart that the electrical signals aren't. It's a non-curable thing, so they're looking for donors. And so any luxury problem that I could have possibly had vanishes as soon as you hear this. Tonglen is your capacity to think of that being, not get sucked into depression. I'm not saying think of that being with the best posture you possibly have. Recognize that you have some happiness in your world right now, that you are lucky to have health, that you are fortunate to have family, that you are blessed to be who you are. And then you think of them, you imagine them, and you imagine taking metaphorically away every pain, everything that causes that condition, and you bring it close to you, and in an act of inhale, you destroy that thing with the power and the wisdom of understanding your world the best you understand it. There's a method to doing it. This is Tonglen. And then once your heart is like that, full of light and love, and you are understanding how lucky you are, you push that like light into that little girl and you make her healthy. And you do it over and over and over. Now there's good news and bad news about that. Will that actually fix her?
Depends on who's looking.
Absolutely. That's the best answer of her. It depends on who's looking. Yeah? Can you change another person's mind? Can you change the way I'm feeling right now? Try.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe, right? Depends on who's looking. So this is an interesting question. The practice will have results. Everything you do has a result. The state of mind that flows through you will have a result. And maybe, if you're doing it right, it can change your world. This is more investigation of that wisdom. So that's one way of developing love for other beings. You do that to you first, your future you first, because you're so interested in your happiness. That's easy. Yeah. Then you do it to those people that are really important to you: boyfriend, girlfriend, mom, dad, sister, brother, yeah, uncle, because they're your people. Yeah. And then gradually, as you practice, you do it with more people. Some strangers on the train, my New Yorkers. Yeah, they're still mine. Yeah, so you use ignorance, attachment, to broaden your heart until you can do it with your yelling, screaming boss, your enemy. And when you can do it with that, you know you've got close to bodhicitta. When you can do it with a being that you used to despise, then you know something special is happening in you, and that should give you more. So that's one way of doing it, swapping yourself around. The other one is this 7-part cause and effect method, which Geshe Tashi Dorje taught here. It's actually 8, because if you notice, step 0 is the first one, which is, I don't know how the Tibetans missed that. But anyway, so the first thing is you think of equanimity, you recognize others as having been your mothers. This is why Jetsun Kappa says, think of how your mothers feel. Because if this idea of past and future lives is true, if we've been cycling our corpses on this planet from time without beginning, then we've met in every iteration. There's infinite time. You've been my mama countless times. You've been my enemy countless times. You've been my hero 1,000 times. We've been in each other's lives forever. And we're probably each other's moms. And when you think of what your mum's done for you, you remember their kindness. Forget whether you get on with your mum or not, but the fact that that creature gave up their lives for 9 months to put up with your growing thing inside, and then to feed you and change you and poo and wee and teach you to speak and to ask and to wake up in the middle of the night because you were crying. Doesn't matter if they're a good or bad mum. If you just think of that, that's why your body is here. So we've done that for each other countless times. You've done that to each other countless times. And for the people that are close to you, you've done it probably more often than not. So the idea here is you think about that and you generate some kind of wish to repay their kindness. To say, thank you, Mum. Thank you, Mum, for your kindnesses. Thank you for your kindnesses. Because it's in there somewhere. If this idea of past and future life exists, then you just love them. It doesn't matter that now they're in the form of a fat, angry lady at the shopping center screaming at her child. Yeah? You find something and you love them for their kindness. You think maybe you don't know that person's life. Maybe that person just finished coming from the hospital. Just finished putting away the other kid. Just finished from the divorce or something. You don't know. So you address every being the best you can with the best intent. And you love them. And then you have some kind of great compassion. You go a little bit more than loving them. You think, I've got to figure this out. I've got to figure out this thing. And if I can, I can help her. And I can help him. Because they want what I want. And how beautiful would it be if they got what they wanted? They'd be as happy as I would be if I got what I wanted. So you see how it starts changing your heart just thinking these things? Mm-hmm. And then you use this thing called Laksam Namdak, which is you take personal responsibility. You don't wait for anybody else to do it. You say, hell, if it's going to be, it's up to me, I'm going to do it. The most clumsy way I can do it, I'm going to do it. If it means I have to do X, I'm going to try. I'm going to make, it'll be my responsibility to change my interaction with all these beings. This is how you develop the heart of bodhicitta. And then you get that spontaneous, and it becomes a habit. Note the direct, so this is cause and effect, so that causes that, causes that. You just had a little experience of it through the talking that I just did. But imagine if you contemplate on this and you practice it on the subway and so on. Yeah? Note that the direct cause of bodhicitta, of that mind of enlightenment, the one that says, I wish to get enlightened for the sake of everyone else, the direct cause, if that's cause and effect, if that leads to that, leads to that, is taking personal responsibility for it. Nobody else is going to come and say, Emily, I've figured out how to get you enlightened, here it is, you're doing this today. No? Can we get you some more water?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So there's two ways. Does that help? Bodhicitta? Bodhicitta, the definition is the wish to get enlightened for the sake of everyone else. You're part of everyone else. So let's talk a little bit about wisdom, that idea of emptiness. Yeah? So we can't talk about emptiness without talking about karma. So we've got to talk about cause and effect. And I'll give you a quick summary on karma. There's course 5 coming. We'll spend a whole night talking about karma, but highly summarized. Karma, forget the word karma because we've probably got some misconceptions about that, right? All this is, and this is a big aha, this was the big thing that the Buddha said, yeah? Everything has a cause. When you do something, something else happens. And it's not just for physical things. See, we in the West are lost in thinking that cause and effect is for material things only. Your mind is cause and effect. Your perception of your world is cause and effect. If it's a truth, if karma, cause and effect, that's a law, right? If that's a law, if that's a universal law, why would your mind be excluded? Your mind is in the world, right? So that was my big aha when I met this enlightened being, when I met the teacher. He said, it doesn't exclude your mind. And it was like someone filled my brain with ahas and said, that means, it was like such a moment. It was like realizing phlogiston didn't exist. I was wrong about phlogiston. Yeah? That the state of my mind, the way I perceived everything, the way everything was colored was also cause. And if that's true, all I have to do is look at the causes and it could produce paradise. It could produce enlightenment. That's amazing. That's freedom. It's not unattainable. It is completely attainable if the idea that we know is true, cause and effect, also applies to your mind, which is the only place your world exists. Yeah, like there's no other place you are perceiving your universe other than your mind. There's nothing out there that you are not aware of. So where are you aware of? That thing is also produced with cause and effect. So understanding that cause and effect, this is a full summary, we'll spend a whole class on it. Cause and effect, karma. Now you're getting to know what karma really is. It's definite. Meaning you do something, it does something else. It's definite. It's not like sometimes it does. Yeah? Like my teacher likes to say, if we think that way, if we think that maybe they don't know how to fly the plane, and you get to go in the plane, say, okay, we're not sure really how to fly this thing, but welcome everybody, we hope to get to Europe soon. Yeah? You wouldn't get on. It's definite like that. Yeah? They figured out a law of gravity and how to work again, and it works all the time. Karma is bigger than that. Your perception of your world, we're going to talk about karma and emptiness, this gets complicated. Here we go. It also increases, like a seed, so when you put a seed in the ground and all the conditions are ready, it will ripen. Like a seed, what it ripens into is way bigger than what got in the ground. Whatever action of kindness you did, it will grow roots first. You can't see it when it's growing roots, and then all of a sudden it's bigger than the seed. The acts of beauty and kindness you see in your world were sprouted from cause and effect, karma, of your perception of your mind from some kindness you did before that was smaller, sometime before. Does that make sense? So our universe, now we're getting to touch wisdom a little bit. Our universe is a movie that's out of sync. You get the images and the sound comes later. They're not synced up. You see what I mean? You think you're planting the seeds, but you're experiencing the ripenings of seeds from them. Does that make sense? You think, I do this and my boss gives me a pay rise. That's not true. The pay rise didn't come from what you did now. That's going to give you a result then. This is a result of that. There's a time delay between putting the seed in the ground and having the experience. This, understanding this, is really getting to the nature of the world. And here's two beautiful parallels on karma. If you didn't do it, you can't get the result. Which means if you're not happy, you didn't plant the seeds. And getting new shoes might or might not do it depending on if you planted the seeds. But getting the shoes alone does not guarantee happiness. Because if it did, everybody that bought shoes would be happy. If you did the course, you must experience the result. Which means, if you've got a yelling, angry person in your life, you actually were that to someone else. So a consequence of understanding the laws of cause and effect in the universe as they really are you look at the state of your world and you say, I like this, I was so good, I'm going to keep doing that. I don't like this, we don't go, it's your fault, we go, personal responsibility, I must have been that to someone else. That's disgusting. I had a beautiful experience of a friend of mine who was internalizing these ideas, and they moved into a friend's apartment. They had lent their apartment to a friend, and then they came back 3 weeks later, and their apartment was disgusting. Stuff was broken, stuff was dirty, there was food in the sink, the fridge was disgusting, the bathroom was gross. And they said for a second they thought, these horrible people, for a second they thought that, and then they thought, I must have been so disrespectful to someone else, and they went quickly to clean their place. This is acting with wisdom.
Can we be friends with them?
Yeah, and invite them to our house. So that's a summary on karma. It's a beautiful subject, and we'll spend a whole night on it. And this whole course 5 online at wherever the address is online. Another thing we should talk about is these 2 truths or 2 realities. That's in there as well. And so we have this fake truth. Also a synonym is nominal reality or relative truth. This is it's called relative truth or fake truth because we think it's true but it's not. Which means if I cheat my way to the top, I've achieved happiness and success. That's why I have abundance. If I lied at the job interview, I got the job. That's not true. If cause and effect never fail, lying cannot give you a pleasurable result. Cheating does not give you success. Cheating makes more cheating. Lying gets you more lying. And it's bigger and lasts longer. So if you did get a job, it was because you gave something like a job or something smaller to someone else. So it flips the way we experience the world. So the nominal reality, this relative reality that we're living, we think is a truth. I really do think that if I lie to my boss and he doesn't find out that I made a mistake, that he'll not know it. But my mind knows it. My mind just got a karma. My mind just experienced the seed. It must give me a result later. Maybe not this boss, maybe the next boss won't trust me. And that's why this movie that's out of sync makes no sense for us. That's why we can't predict why things happen. That's phlogiston. You're doing all these bizarre things to give you courses and results, and they're not the real result because you didn't do a real course. Because everything you do is filled with this desire, this grasping, my precious. Yeah, we'll talk about him in a second. Then there's the ultimate truth, the underlying, unfathomable, unshakable thing that lies in the fabric of everything. This is the ultimate reality. This is the nature of all things, and that is that all things, and you've got to listen carefully because it's so simple we miss it. All things do not have a nature of their own. Meaning, things are blank from having the nature we experience out of them. The nature we experience bouncing off these blank objects, this emptiness, these empty objects, are just the echoes of our mind, of our seed, of our karma. That thing without my karma is empty of having any nature. That's what emptiness really means. That's ultimate truth. Recognizing that internally, having a Mahamudra event, is knowing that as a visceral experience about all things. That all things without exception are empty of having any nature at all. That the nature we enjoy or despise out of things are coming from us. Things don't have any nature. And the proof of that is, if things have their nature, every single thing interpreting or interacting with that thing must have the same result. In other words, if I think coffee is the best drink on the planet, every single lip that touches coffee must have the same experience that I had because it's coming from the coffee. But we know it's not. It's so simple we miss it. If it were coming from the coffee, nobody would be allergic to coffee.
Why is Little Skips so profitable?
Little Skips is profitable because I have good karma with them. Yeah. And so do you, which is a favorite coffee shop. So this is the big one. You've got to listen to this over and over and over. We'll spend a whole period on it. Emptiness means things don't have a nature of their own. Everything is blank of having a nature. The only nature they have is that they have no nature. And so why are things experienced the way they're experienced? Where do they come from? This is where you understand karma. And I'll talk a little bit about how to apply these philosophies in a second. You had a question? Or can I? Great, thank you. So this is, we'll cover these two truths, but you've got to get this idea that there are two things going on. The fake reality that we're interacting with 99.999% of the time, and the real reality which is underlying everything we never get to see, we never get to interpret, the ultimate nature of things. And these ideas is habituating and internalizing how to interact with the real substance of life, so then relatively the most beautiful things can happen, like enlightenment, like nirvana, like end of suffering. So to understand this, we've got to understand this long-winded thing called dependent origination. And all that means, it's a fancy way of saying the way we experience things depend on something. They are dependent on something. If we experience something, it is dependently arising. They arose because of something, right? It's like karma. Dependent origination is explaining the first of the two realities, the fake truth. Yeah, it's just a way to explain why coffee is nice to some people and coffee is revolting to other people. Why a dog barking is exciting for the owner and everyone else hates it. Yeah, why your favorite piece of music is crap for someone else. It's not coming from the music. Dependent origination is to understand why it's got that flavor. And emptiness is looking at the underlying thing. So this is a positive changing thing, meaning it's a material thing, you can see it, it's there, but it's changing. Emptiness, the real nature of this thing, it has both relative and ultimate reality. It's unchanging and it's a negative, it's a lack of something. You can't find it, it's not a physical thing. Yeah? Another mistake we made in internalizing these philosophies is that we go look for a self-existent emptiness. We'll cover that later. Bear with me this next slide, it gets heavy. Here we go. There's some ways of understanding what I just covered, which was karma and emptiness. Dependent origination and emptiness. Do you understand? Yeah? Okay. And there's 4 schools that can be divided into 3 main groups, and they're called functionalist, independent, doesn't matter. But some people say that dependent origination means things, let's say these flowers, are dependently arising because of causes and conditions. Meaning, if you put seeds of flowers in the ground, that's the cause. The conditions are it's got earth and water and sunlight, and up comes the plant. Therefore, you have that. The same for an iPhone. You go to China, you pay a whole bunch of people no money at all, and they produce a plastic thing that seems to have lots of value over here. Yeah? So you get the plastic, and you get the people, and you get the glass, and those causes and conditions produce what we call an iPhone, produce what we call flower. Does that make sense? That's true for most things, and that's helpful to understand where things come from. Most of the Western world spends their time investigating that to the nth degree with science, cause and effect, making sure headache pills stop your headache 99% of the time. If they always stop your headache, if they were the cause of stopping your headache, they would always stop your headache. They're not the cause of stopping effect, ultimately. But it works, 99%. So we're happy with that. We miss a few times, and we ignore it, and we live our lovely cyclic lives. So that helps some way to understand dependent origination. Another philosophical school called the independent school went a little up on that. That's true, but really if you want to include everything in the universe, such as space and so on, which has no cause like a seed does or plastic, you have to say that things dependently arising, this idea of space and the idea of flower, are really there because it's got parts. So without the petals, and this you couldn't call this a flower. So it's more philosophical and encompasses more things. And then the highest school, the highest view of how things arise in dependence on what, is that they are dependent, and this is the crux of it, on your mind labeling it, naming it something. Because that's not a flower for a pig. Yeah? It's something else, it's food. You can it. So their mind, which is a valid mind on this planet, is still looking at an object. It looks at this object and says, it is a food, and I'm eating it. And you go, that's not a food, it's a flower. You can't eat flowers. So the pig and you were in a fight, and the pig wins, because it ate it. And you didn't get to enjoy the thing, which is true. Why be prejudiced? Why is your truth better than the pig's truth? It's got a mind, it's perceiving an object, it needs to eat it, it's food. So what is it, food or flower? Both or neither? Big question. We'll talk about that in a second. I've got to do this in 5 minutes. So, all Buddhist schools say, you've heard about no self, okay? I'm going to give you another idea of no self. Here we go. This is called the gacha, or the thing we deny exists. The emptiness is empty of this thing, yeah? This is another way of thinking of emptiness. Things are empty of this stuff. It has no self. So for those three philosophical ideas about explaining how things arise, how things are dependently arising, how do they exist, they say that nothing could exist. There would be no flower for the first school without the seed and the soil and the sun and the causes of it. And that makes sense, that's okay, but how does that help me get enlightened? You know, it's a big, okay, so nice philosophy, but I'm still suffering. Help me. Yeah, so that made some sense. It helps us make aeroplanes and it helps us do things in the nominal world, but how does it get me free from suffering? How does it get me free from my pressures, destroying all my goodnesses? Then the second school, the one that says that things are dependent on their parts, say that, you know, if I took that top part off, you could never call this a flower anymore. And they're true, fantastic, very good, but so, big deal. Yeah, very good philosophical discussion. I'm sure it helps someone, but it's not helping me. The highest school, the one that says things are dependent on my perception of them, on my mind engaging with them. This isn't only a flower for a mind that is forced to see it as a flower. Forced from what?
Karma.
Karma. Forced from the causes and conditions you placed in your mind, your karma. Yeah? Without that karma, a being could not experience that as a flower. So something made that into a beautiful flower. Some people are allergic to flowers, and something made it into an annoying flower. We still call it a flower, but there's two flavors. But what caused that? It's not in the thing. It's empty of that. It's in the perceiver. The pig sees it as food. I see it as a beautiful flower. Someone sees it as something to be allergic to. And you don't have choice about that. Not when it's happening, because the causes of that happened way before. Yeah? This now is helping you. You're like, oh, hold on a second. The yelling, screaming boss is a changing thing. It was caused by something. My experience of it, it's arising in dependence of my experience of it. If I can tinker with the thing, with the cause, that yelling, screaming boss could turn into my best friend. Is that possible? Do yelling bosses turn into best friends? Sometimes they do, and sometimes they go the other way around.
Silent.
And sometimes they become silent. So it's the big pink elephant in the room. The thing that doesn't exist, the impossible thing, is the gacha. And yet we live our lives with this thing thinking it's true. Wisdom is understanding this no self. It doesn't mean you don't exist. You're there, you're a self, you're a person, you're there. It doesn't mean there's no self, that I don't exist. It doesn't mean that. It means it has no self-nature. It's impossible to have a nature of perfect, beautiful flower from its own side and have a pig think it's food and be someone allergic and so on. That hasn't got that. So understanding that that thing has no self-nature is what no self means. And it's describing its truth, not its fake truth, its ultimate truth. That's really how things exist. And now you can begin tinkering with the causes that made it into beautiful flowers so you can produce more beautiful flowers. So if you understand no self, then enlightenment is truly possible. Because suffering life doesn't have to be suffering life, because it doesn't have a nature from its own side as suffering life. Some people have been freed from suffering. What the hell caused that? So you can be free from suffering. It has no nature, like the flower has no nature. You have no nature, like the flower has no nature. You don't even have to be a normal person. You could be an angelic creature. Truly, not pretend, truly experience yourself. Something is forcing you to see you as you. That is not permanent. That is changing. Something caused it. It wasn't your mom and dad. Yes, they helped in producing your body, but your experience of you, that's completely dependent arising from your karmas. If you change your karmas, you change who you are. From a normal person to an enlightened being in New York in 2013. Possible. Then all of a sudden this thing, you keep asking, so what fills the blank? Right? What fills this thing with flowerness or foodness or allergicness? It is me. It is my mind. It is the self-projecting. Yeah? And then, this is the big question. What's morality got to do with enlightened states of mind? Then every goodness that you could possibly do in your world with the right view will produce every good thing you could ever imagine. And bigger. Then morality, being good in the world, is not good because the Bible said so, or your preacher said so, or your mum told you, or your grandma said it was a good idea. Okay, that's all nice. But if things have no nature, and you create their nature with what you do, the karmas you plant, then every goodness, every virtue, every moral thing to do, every right thing to do will produce in your life the most beautiful results. Really. Not because grandma said so. I'm a minute over. So in practice, here we go. What did we just learn? Check your world. Check the reality you're living in. It's not the way you think it is. Your subconscious is running it. And what I mean by subconscious now are all the karmas that are planted there from time without beginning, forcing you to see yourself with the limitations you see yourself with. They are not permanent. They are not self-existent. They were produced by something. They are caused. Everything is caused, including your experience of yourself. Contemplate on wisdom, how things are changing. And you can direct that change. You can tinker with the causes and conditions and change this world. This world isn't the way you think it is. 10 years ago, there was no internet. 120 years ago.
Yeah, a little bit of
10 years ago, there was no internet in Nepal, I meant to say.
There's no internet in Central Park.
Thank you. Now there is. What I'm saying is this world has become global like that. What is that? How did that happen? For thousands of years we were stuck in land masses and had to travel by ship for 3 months. In a few hours you're in another continent. What made that? Okay. And then if you're going to do anything with these ideas, take some responsibility for your world. Stop blaming other people for your circumstances and go, if I'm hurting, then I probably have that flavor of doing that to someone else. Where am I doing that to someone else? And if you find it, fix it. And if you don't find it, say, good, it's finished. You see? But your state of mind remains beautiful, not angry. Because if you're angry, that's just producing more anger. Don't do that. Stop it. Okay. So just be kinder. Be kinder than you already are. If you're already kind, be kinder. Be happier. Rejoice. Think of all the good things you've done. Go help someone else be happy. That's how you put these ideas into practice. So before we go, let's go, relax, the seat will grow. We just covered what you know. Don't forget the Langsung Namsung. I'll read it next time.
Which?
The Langsung Namsung, the text we just covered. We've just spent some time thinking, contemplating on really how to shift a world. I don't know what landed in you, what little voice you had in your head, what karmas you had enabling you to see this as a way towards freedom. I hope some fragment of it turned your heart into something lovely. I hope you come back on Thursday. Dedicate this that it may land on any being that is lost in the world, trying to get happy buying shoes, trying to get happy doing silly things. I'm not saying don't stop traveling or stop enjoying or stop befriending. I'm not saying that. Eat good food, enjoy your friends, have good sex. It's nice. Enjoy those things, but they're not the ultimate cause of your freedom. There's a deeper thing here. So imagine that whatever aha moment, if you got any, just lands on as many beings on this planet right now, and that they find, in whatever shape suits them, some meaning. Yeah, and we do that by, first we do the mandala. I didn't put it here, so hurry up.
Zashi Kuki Jinshin Metoshan Ria Winshin Degim Padi Sonde Shindu Nite Robin Amba Shingla Shilpasho Idam Gururatna Mandala Kamniyatayami Gewaji Gewoten Sunam Yeshe Tsokshin Sunam Yeshe Lejunwe Dampa Kini Topasho.
Just send it to as many places as you possibly can. Imagine people getting happy. And if you have some to spare, send it to Melong Sima, our friend from Nepal, that she may get free from her sufferings and her family. No, thank you. We'll read more on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I hope Peru is applauding too.
Gracias, Peru. Yeah. Thank you. That was fun.